Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our Tips for Mortgage video series. My name is Mike Parkinson. I'm a mortgage broker with Dominion Lending Centers out in Vancouver Island, and this is my cousin Jaden Bax. He's a broker with Avenue Financial just outside of Calgary, Alberta. Morning, Jay.
Morning, Mike. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, thanks. Let's get to it. This is our reverse mortgage series. We're going to continue on with this. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about setup requirements, basically cost to set your reverse mortgage up. And this is going to be more of a kind of some approximation. In BC, we have 3 different options to look at typically for reverse mortgages. In Alberta, you have 2. So every lender is a little bit different on their process and how they do it. And the steps might be a little bit more tiered a little bit differently. But the costs are going to be kind of within the range that we're going to talk about today. And that range is typically the cost to you to set that up is going to be between, I'd say, $2,500 and up to like $4,200. And it's all dependent on where you live, on what product you take, because certain products have different costs to set up. And we're going to go through the products in future videos. So let's start with the first one. It's the main cost that most people have when they're taking equity out of their house, and that's the appraisal, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is the one that probably will see the biggest variance depending on where you live, what type of property you have. If you're on an acreage, it changes. If you're in what we would call an estate home or a high-end home, it changes. So basically, in Alberta, if I'm looking at the typical house, my appraiser, just normal house in the city, nothing out of that, is $325. And so I think that's a pretty good baseline for just about anywhere in Canada. That's probably the lowest end you're going to see for an appraiser anywhere in Canada, around that 325. But that can go up significantly. You could be talking, 500. Sometimes for acreage properties, $1,000 for an appraisal.
More. Yeah.
So, so it's just a really good starting point. Is that $300 and up? But yeah, it depends on the house you're looking at and things like that. Typically, the higher the value of the home, the more equity you'll be able to take out. Probably the higher the appraisal cost as well. So just something to take into consideration. And then so that's kind of the first step in everything as you start the process. After that, you're looking at every lender is going to have an admin fee, and Mike's going to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, no, the admin fee is basically the setup cost for the lenders. And again, they're different. They range from $9.95 all the way up to like $29.95 again, depending on the product that you need. So sometimes there's extra cost to set up a certain product that's going to work for you, that's going to save you a lot of money in the short or the long term. So again, these setup fees are, you think, oh my gosh, this is adding up, but every lender requires you setup fees and costs when you're taking equity from your home. So again, it's anywhere from $9.95 up to $29.95. And one thing I wanted to mention, Jay, is most of these costs are absorbed in the equity you're taking from your home in a reverse mortgage, so it can be paid out of the proceeds. The only thing that isn't typically is the appraisal. So that'll be a cost out of your pocket up front that you're going to have to pay for. But other than that, you're looking at, so the appraisal cost is a cost out of your pocket, and then you're looking at the admin fee, and then you're going to have to get what's called independent legal advice through your own lawyer. Typically, a lot of the lenders require you to use a lawyer that's familiar with reverse mortgages, and there is a list that we can get if you need them, and that can be anywhere between, I don't know, $700 to $1,000. So that's another cost you got to think about. Some lenders require you to use a notary or lawyer, and then another lawyer for independent legal advice. Again, it's just a different process, a different tier of how you get to the end result of those numbers we're talking about. But that gives you a bit of a sense of an idea on the typical cost. So kind of budget between $2,500 and $4,000, give or take $200 or $300 on each end. And that's something that your broker, that we would talk to you up front about, to know, if you're taking out $200,000, you got to be prepared that there's going to be $3,000 or $4,000 that's going to come off that you're not going to get. But that's part of the closing costs. Let's talk though, Jay, about, is this really expensive or is it not? Depending on, if you don't qualify for a traditional mortgage, you're looking at maybe alternative lending or private lending.
Yep.
And that's private lending money. Talk a little bit about that, what the cost is to set something like that up.
Absolutely. And with alternative lending, you're also looking at an appraisal. It's going to be the same cost as that appraisal you were doing. And so the alternative lenders, in my experience, don't tend to do an auto valuation on your home, which is something that the reverse mortgage lenders can do if you're in an area where there's enough comparable sales that they're familiar with. But then you're also looking at just about every alternative lender. The baseline for your cost is 1% lending fee. So whatever amount of money you're taking out, you're looking at 1%. So that $995 admin fee becomes on that $200,000 becomes the $2,000 lender fee, right? And then if you get pushed out even further, where alternative lending doesn't fit either, and then private, you go even beyond that, because all of a sudden there has to be typically there's a broker fee. That's the way that we would get paid on setting you up with that private. There's also a lender fee that, generally speaking, is between 1% and 3%, but can go even further if the deal is a little bit harder to get across the finish line. And then even higher interest than you're looking at with a reverse mortgage. And then you're looking at your monthly payments on top of that and everything else, right? So I think, when you look at the typical client that we would place in a reverse mortgage, the setup fee, it might seem like a little bit higher when you're looking at that traditional conventional mortgage that you had while you were a working person and had kind of good income coming in. But really, when you compare it to your alternatives, I think it's a relatively good deal.
Absolutely. So that's something to consider. But again, make sure you give us a call if you got questions or you're thinking about getting into reverse mortgage. We're here to not only give you, ideas on products and what's going to work for you, but we can compare the different lenders and let you know what we think is going to be the best for you. So we're happy to help at any time. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Please pass it on to anybody you know that's thinking about getting a reverse mortgage, and we're here to help anytime. Well, I just want to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody out there, and to you, Jay. We'll see you in the new year. Hope you take care.
Yeah, hope everyone has a great one.
See you, bud.